Okay, the best that I can place ourselves would be 2 lines from the top on page Ches, V'lochein, the second line. Does that kind of correspond to your...
Last Monday, yeah.
All right.
Same thing, maybe.
Yeah, okay. We are discussing, and the Rebbe is explaining, a very subtle and very important concept. In terminology, in terms of its reference words, it's a difference between tselem and the mus. That's a reference point, okay? And to put it into terms in our experience that we can directly relate to, we'll discuss more the details of them. I want to kind of bring it in a manner that we can all relate to. We can readily say with my own seichel, oh yeah, I see the difference. Not just in words, but I personally, my seichel see the difference. If somebody, I've never learned about it, somebody would ask me the question, this would be my answer. And the question that I ask is this, which we discussed many times, but I want to... Is there a difference between how a human being sees things and how an animal sees things? They both see, both have eyes. Is there a difference between what they see and how they see things? Or sight is sight is sight? In our day, in our time, this is a very valid question. Because if you ask a scientist, you say there's no difference. The camera and the human eye and the animal eye sees things exactly the same way. The camera also snaps a picture. The human eye snaps a picture. How does it snap a picture? Because there is light hitting the object, and then this light is deflected from the object. And that's how you see it. So what's so significant about that? We, because we learn Chassidus, and because we are human beings, and we sense, no, that's not what sight is all about. It's not at all. And it's so much not at all, because it is that actually there's a profound, fundamental difference between how a human being sees things, lahavdil how an animal sees things, and then you can say lahavdil how a camera sees things. How would we describe? We sense a difference. Once we sense a difference, we can focus in on that which we sense and say, here is how I would describe that difference. This is the pshat seichel. You know, we sense, that's like an insight, a chokhmah. But then we have to be able to focus in on that which we sense and identify, this is where it brings it down to Bina. What is in fact the difference? How would you describe the difference? How would you explain the difference? So I'm not going to challenge anybody to do that, but if you volunteer, be my guest.
I would think that the difference between the way a human being sees and an animal sees is that when a person, we recognize different things. Because of our intellectual faculties, we're able to see. Like for example, we see a table, we know it's a table. We know how, as the cat sees the table, doesn't see a table, it just sees like a thing. You know, it doesn't see the purpose of it.
Forget about a table. A cat doesn't know a table.
Right.
But a cat knows a mouse, or it knows its food. How does a cat look at food relative to how would a human being look at it? I mean, a cat looking at a table, of course, it doesn't. A table is out of its realm.
Right.
But things that are within its realm, within its world. Is there a difference between how a human being sees it and how an animal sees it?
Yeah, someone created it.
I'm sorry?
Meaning, like, an animal doesn't realize that someone actually made the food or created it. Let's say the food, right? So by a person, he realizes that there's that someone created it. And not just, and now for more spiritual things, like this world, let's see, let's say a table, he realizes that there's someone, so there's something that created it. Right? Meaning, so it didn't only just, sorry, I mean, I shouldn't, yeah, that's sort of,
That's very interesting. Do you think that a human being sees, when a human being sees the food that somebody created it, this is like simultaneous?
again, I didn't get the full question.
You say that the human being sees the food, he sees that somebody created it.
Yeah.
This fact that it was created by someone,
Or
and seeing the food,
some higher being, whatever, yeah, whatever. It depends what it is, yeah.
seeing the food and seeing the fact that somebody created it, is that happen simultaneously, or did they happen in sequence? You know what I mean? First he sees the food, and then he says, okay, how did it come here? Somebody made it. Or is it simultaneous?
It's not simultaneous.
Huh?
It's not simultaneous.
It's not simultaneous. I'm asking, so that's a separate union.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't play into that question.
That's a separate union. I'm saying, when he sees the food, per se, is there a difference between how he sees it and the animal sees it?
I think so. I think the animal probably sees the food as an end unto itself, just to eat. The human being has the understanding. You see, food is something for a purpose to be healthy, to stay alive, in order to fulfill something greater, in order to have a life. You know,
Again, you are combining two separate aspects. Seeing the food and eating the food. You're saying a human being eats the food for a reason. Also, that depends on the human being. Sometimes he takes the food and eats it even if because he likes it, you know. I'm talking about observing of the food itself, without any other additional thought, and just what he observes. The thing is like this. I'm sorry, you want to say something? This is something, this level of concept that we're discussing, we are able to sense that there's a difference because we are human beings. The Rebbe gave us the special insight, the special intelligence. To further be able to analyze it, for this you really have to have a developed. This has not come automatic. For this you have to work, and so therefore, I did not really expect that. Even though we discussed many things in the same vein, but nevertheless, to correlate what we discussed to what we're discussing now itself also is not so simple. Go ahead. Yeah.
That the person, he can look at the food and see, wow, it's nice.
Sorry?
Look at the food and looks at it, it's a nice fruit. While the cat doesn't see any niceness to it.
Okay, well, again, is this simultaneous? Is this something that is synonymous with seeing the food, or is it two separate inyanim?
See it, I like it.
It's two separate inyanim, like he said, right? Does it look nice? It's food. How does it look nice? How does it look? Is it nicely prepared? Is it tasty? These are two separate questions.
When you see the food, you see that it's a real thing. As opposed to the animal, it could be here, it could not be here. It's here now.
See, this is the important thing. This is the important thing. A human being, the fact that I can eat the food, that's a second level. By an animal, there is no seeing the food on its own. There's nothing that exists in the animal's eyes. Just, in other words, he relates to things, it exists as a reality. He sees it only as something that serves it. Food means that I can eat it. That's it. That's the definition of food. A human being sees two separate things. First he sees the reality of food, and then he sees that he can eat it, that it's edible, that he can eat it, or somebody else can eat it. So this is a very important distinction.
Oh, I don't like getting it, because I thought you said, like, what's the difference in actual seeing the food? But the way that you explained it is that, like, by a person there's two steps, right? And by an animal there's only one step.
No. The first step that a human being sees in food, what is the first step? It's real. The second step, then he sees, what are you going to do with this food? An animal sees only one thing. What am I going to do with it?
Oh, so the animal only sees step two.
The only step, only how it affects it. Doesn't see things in an absolute reality. Objectively. The common term is objectively. Seeing it the way it is, not pertaining to myself. A human being sees things objectively first, and then sees how that pertains to him. This ability, through your Zoom, wow. Why don't you take the box with you? This ability to see things objectively, to see the reality. It truly is a human intelligence. This is not something that can be explained. As a matter of fact, the famous expression. Did you ever hear the expression, "A Kopf kann man nicht aufstellen"? You can't put a head on somebody's shoulders. You can explain things if he has a head. If he doesn't have a head, there's no way you can put a head on his shoulders. What does that mean? Because there are certain primary intelligence elements that emanate directly from the soul. Either you have it developed or not. You have to find it in yourself. There's something which nobody can impart to you, can give you. You're sitting directly at the crosswinds. It's not a good place to sit for you. You're just sneezing cold. Sit over here or over there. This is, in terms of what we're learning here, is the union from Tselem and the Mus. You could say that a human being sees the Tselem, sees the reality. Even though he sees it, it's two separate things from him. He sees it. He sees the reality. It's two separate things, right? It's only a reflection. But when he sees the other thing, even though it's separate from him, he sees the real thing. That's called tzelem. This is called Abba Paltiel ZH, seeing things in its real place. The other way is seeing only what relative to you. The mus means similar. You translate what you see in yourself. You don't see the thing itself. There's something there, you translate it in your mind what that is, and that is what you see. It's a translated reality. It's not a direct reality. Which is like tzelem or the mus. The mus is the person in the mirror, like we said before. He reflects it, but it's only a translation of what he is, the reality. So this is like the terminology. This is a motion, what we're discussing now, but this is something which gives a little bit of a tangible understanding of this. The difference between Zoh and Malchus. And ultimately, as we're going to see, this is the difference between the term Zeh and Koi. If you remember, when we first came to this scene, we pointed out, Zeh is the human being. Koi is the animal. Only a human being has the concept of Zeh. Of course, for him, there's a reality. Not just a functional level, but the real thing. Functional means what I can do with it. The real thing is, what is it?
The cat sees.
Only functional.
Doesn't really see anything. Everything for him is just a dream till
He sees only the chitzonis. It's only functionality.
But I'm thinking he doesn't really see anything.
What do you mean, anything?
Anything which he sees, he doesn't think it's really there.
Right, he doesn't have a sense of reality. He has only a sense of how he is going to be affected by it. One time we express it like, whatever he sees, he has only one question. Is he going to be my lunch, or am I going to be his lunch? That's all he's concerned about. What?
I don't feel like I got it. I mean, I think because of that question.
Okay. Okay, see if you follow this. Please understand, okay? The world was created by Hashem. Contrary totally, please understand, listen carefully, contrary completely from the human perception of the world developed itself. Seeing the world as it developed itself is like seeing the world through the eyes of an animal. Which means you see only how things affect each other. No reality. It's called cause and effect. And from their perspective, everything developed, it's so great and so forth. It's still not the reality. It's just developed because one thing caused another, one can cause another, and cause another. It is only functionally developed. There's no reality. This is why they come up and they say, a human being thinks like this. But he thinks like this only functionally. There's no reality. He can think the opposite also. If he chooses to live differently, so he lives differently. The whole thing is only functional. What pleases him, what he likes, and that's the reality. And we have to remember, we do not subscribe to that at all. Because we see everything in the world and the human being in particular as a Meibush's creation, representing a godly truth. And Hashem created the human being the way He created him. And if he perverts his ways, then he sins against his Creator. Not only that, perverting its ways, even it says by the time of the Mabul, all the animals also became perverted as a result of perversions of the human being. Animals also have a certain way to natural way to live. Because the Rebbe should give each thing its path in life. And the most important one is the human. This is called Zeh. This is called Tzelem. The reality itself. Is that now clearer?
I tried whatever.
Huh?
I tried them. Sorry, I don't know if I got it. I'm trying whatever.
You have to try very hard. But the way to try very hard, here's an important point. Like we said before, a kop kemen sharuf shtel. A person is used to thinking in a certain pattern, in a certain way. Then he comes to learning Hasidus, and Hasidus has a completely different view of things. If he tries to understand Hasidus, utilizing the same pattern, the same basis of how he understood carpentry, he's never going to get to it. How do you understand carpentry? Take a piece of wood and study it. What can I do with this piece of wood? You understand? That's how you understand carpentry. Hasidus, you don't take a piece in the world and say, okay, what does this piece of the world tell me? Hasidus tells you things that only your neshama knows. And the neshama reveals itself and lets your intelligence know. Therefore, when you listen to it, you do not study it from your worldly orientation. You say, okay, I hear. Can I sense something of what you're saying? In my mind. Not in my experience, in my mind. Can I relate to what you're saying? Like I said before, can you recognize the difference between a human being and an animal? This is not from studying the physical makeup of the human being. It is just your sense of what the human being is, your sense of what an animal is. The same applies to whatever you learn in Hasidus. You have to listen to what Hasidus says, and if you want to understand, then you open your mind and say, let me see if I can relate to it personally. Not whether I agree with it. That will never work, because you're coming from a worldly perspective. You have to try to see if I can relate to it. If you can relate to it, then eventually you will see, oh yeah, that's really it. That's really correct. That's really what I see, what I live with. Because I am a human being. The Rebbe gave me the human intelligence. Okay. You see how you stop sneezing? Miracle.
Miracles happen every day.
Are you with us, or are you?
I'm with you.
Where is your sefer?
I don't have one.
You don't have one. You know it by heart?
I'm listening.
I don't understand. You have a notebook in front of you. and you're writing in your notebook, and you don't have a sefer, and you listen, and you reduce.
We don't want a copy.
Copy is no problem. The problem is, if you were here, how come you're sitting without a sefer?
I misplaced it a long time ago.
So ask for the sefer. Okay, listen, I want to be here. Ask him for the copy and make a copy.
Pretty cool.
It's
JJ?
page Ches.
You want me to double-sided?
Here's a copy. Probably even mine.
What?
Here's a copy. It might even be mine.
That was quick.
Miracle. Another
Another
miracle.
one like that? You do that again?
Okay. All right. We're on the second line from the top on page Ches. V'lochein, for this reason, which reason? For the fact that in Malchus, as we're going to see, we're talking about Malchus. For this reason that the Malchus does not have this aspaklaria hamiyiro, only a reflection of the real thing, not the real thing itself, like in Zohar. Nikro HaMalchus, that's why the Malchus is called b'shem Mare Udmus. Mare means an appearance. Dmus means a similarity. You see something similar, but you don't see the thing itself. Ukmeisha Kosu. And as the Posik says, He Mare Dmus Kved Hashem, Kved Havaya. This is the Novi, Yecheskel, I believe, this saw, that he saw, it says, this is Mare Dmus. This is the vision of the Dmus, of the similarity of Kved Hashem. Kved Havaya of the Kovid, of the glory, of the beauty of Elokus. So what does this posik tell us? The Havaya, the Muskved Havaya. What is Havaya referred to? Havaya hu bechinas zo. Shalom, please. Either you're here or you're not here.
I'm here.
No, okay, don't play games. Don't play games with yourself and with everybody else.
I'm okay. I'm not playing games. I'm here.
Okay. Havaya hu bechinas zo. Havaya refers to the name from zo. Havaya is Yud-K, Vov-K, this is Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is in zo. And I'll explain in a moment the correlationship. Malchus nikro mare dumus kved Havaya. Malchus is called the mare, the appearance or the similarity of kved Havaya. Lefi shehu, the reason that Malchus is called the mus, lefi shehu bechinas haora levad, because Malchus is only a haora. Now we need to discuss and understand and relate to two concepts. Number one, Havaya. It says Zoe is Havaya, it's great Havaya. And then to the concept of Ha'ora Levat. What is a Ha'ora? Malchus is only a Ha'ora, and that's why it's called the Mus Kved Havaya. Generally speaking, Havaya is Hashem's name, Havaya. We're not even allowed to pronounce his name in the proper way. But the spelling of that word, of that name, represents represents the word to be, presence, existence, Havaya. Because this is the name with which Hashem brings forth all existence. Hashem himself, this is only a name. Hashem himself, Atzmus, is completely above the whole thing. But then he presents himself in order to give presence, to create, So the force that gives the capability of creation and existence is called Havaya. And this is what's known as Zoh. Now, what is the relationship between Zoh and Havaya? Havaya is Hashem's name. And this name consists of 4 letters. Yud, K, and Vav, K. These 4 letters represent the process through which the godly force travels, goes through until it accomplishes the final creation. In general, Yud and K, Yud represents Chokhmah, and K represents Bina. And what is the principle of Chokhmah? The principle of Chokhmah is that Chokhmah, just like we asked before, I asked you right in the beginning, what's the difference between how a human being sees and how an animal sees? And all of us immediately sense, there is a difference. To explain the difference, we had a difficulty. But everybody senses a difference. How come we sense there's a difference? The answer is, the reason we sense there's a difference is because we all have a human neshama. And we also have the koyach ha-chochmah that senses how the neshama responds, reveals itself in to a certain question. My neshama tells me through my chokhmah that there is a difference between. As a human being, this is not something I learned. As a human being, I sense that there is a difference. That first sense of what the human being senses is called chokhmah. Chokhmah senses what the neshama, how the neshama expresses, responds to a certain thing. So that's the highest level, because it's the closest to the neshama itself. Then there is, from that, comes into Bina, which already becomes a definitive, a defined thing. And then it comes into Midas, Vav. Vav is the 6 Midas. This is the Zoh. Okay? And then afterwards it goes into the last K, which is the Malchus. This is the process of creation. So from Zoh comes into Malchus. So Zoh is Kved Havaya. Malchus is the Demus Kved Havaya. It's only a reflection of Kved Havaya. And this is called Ha'ora Levad. What does Ha'ora mean? So far, have you with me? Everyone? Yes?
Ha'ora is right.
I'm sorry? Ha'ora means a reflection of the real thing. Between Ha'ora. Oir and Ha'ora. What is the difference? What is the significance between that and that?
That's not the real thing.
I'm sorry?
It's not the real thing.
It's not the real thing. Right. And in what way is it similar?
It's both light.
That's right.
With what?
Both are light. Okay? What is the difference? To take very simple. What is the difference between candlelight? Candlelight is a very limited light, but still it's a direct light from the fire. Candlelight and the light that comes from a mirror that reflects the light, that deflects the light. You understand what I'm saying? They put a mirror against candlelight. With that mirror, you can illuminate, certain specific spots, places. That reflects the light. What is the difference between this light and that light? The light coming from the candle is direct light from the fire. It's real light. This is only a light functionally. What means functionally? It acts like a light, but it's not a light.
Wait a second. if you reflect a candle, if you reflect a candle to the mirror, right? So now in fact the place has light. It's not because of the mirror, it's because of the candle there.
No, but the mirror reflects the light from the candle. The mirror brings.
Yeah, now it's light there, right?
It's not the real light. It's it's a functional light.
No, but there's no additional light there.
Huh?
In the room, there's no additional light because of this reflection.
No, I'm not saying additional light. What is this light that comes from the mirror? Please try to understand what I'm saying.
Right.
What is this light that comes from the mirror? Is it a physical light, or is it functionally? It acts like light. It's not the real thing. It doesn't have the presence of light. It acts. It illuminates. It has only light in the terms that it makes you see a certain spot, like a mirror. This is a candle, and you put a mirror over here. The candle shines all around. In the mirror, you can focus a light in this direction, that direction. With the mirror, you can focus the light, and then you actually have, like you make even more intense the light because you condense it and you can make it intense. And you direct it. It's true, you do not add any light, but functionally, what you do is take all the light and you can condense it into one, like mirror, and the candle shines in every direction. Like the headlights of a car are very, very bright. The bulb itself that's in the headlight is not a very powerful bulb. It's really strong, but not the kind of light that it sheds. How does it shed that light? It's because of the various convective mirrors that concentrate the light and send it in one direction. So it takes all the light that this bulb produces, and it concentrates, directs it in one place, and that it illuminates it and makes it very bright. But what you have in this light is what's called the ha'ora. Ha'ora means it gives you the functionality, but not the essence. That's called the ha'ora. Huh? Yeah, the other one called oil. So Malchus is called the Dmus because it is only a ha'or. And I want to give you a very significant demonstration of the concept of ha'or. Something that really, so to speak, hits home. Every human being has a neshama. And the neshama, we don't know what the neshama is because there's no way that we can understand what the neshama is. But one thing we know, that the neshama is a living spirit, an entity that lives, and it's not dependent on the goof. And the person, after 120, when a person passes away, his goof ceases and no longer has the neshama. But the neshama does not cease to be. The neshama rises to a different level. The neshama never ceases to be. The neshama is a real godly presence. And this neshama comes into the goof, and all of a sudden, this physical piece of meat comes to life. It's an amazing thing. It really lives, like we discussed the other day. The sensitivity that you have in the goof. Even while the neshama is in the goof, and the neshama gives the goof life, and the goof becomes sensitive and all that, there is a very fundamental difference between the neshama and the goof. The goof does not has life of its own. Doesn't have life in the same way the neshama is, that it is essentially life through and through. It has functionally a life. It still remains a physical entity, And it's still very limited what the group can conceptualize. It can only think on the physical level. And all these sensitivities are all on the physical level. But it has something that is akin, similar to living. In other words, because it's sensitive. So it has the life of the neshama. But what element of the life of the neshama does it? Not the essence of the life, only the ha'orat, or the functional element. Huh?
So what are you referring to? So what are we talking about? Talking about the you said, sorry.
I said that I want to explain to you the term ha'ora. So the neshama in the goof, but the neshama gives the goof is a ha'ora of the neshama, not the essence of the neshama. If the neshama had given the goof the essence, so then the goof would be like the neshama itself. It's not.
How would the goof have? If the whole neshama was inside the goof, then the goof would be the neshama?
Then the goof would be like the neshama, but it would be forever. Number one, and then he would be able to understand and conceptualize the same thing as the neshama can, but it's not.
That's two separate things, no? Goof neshama.
I'm sorry?
Isn't goof neshama two different things?
That's right, because the neshama does not, the essence of the neshama does not mislabish in the goof, only a light of it. It illuminates it. Only ha'ora.
If the whole neshama comes.
I'm saying if the whole neshama were to be mislabish in the goof, then the goof would cease to have the limits of a
Right,
goof.
the
Will be bottle? Will be like the neshama?
It's going to be Tchias HaMesim, no?
Maybe. So this is the Pshat Ha'ora. It gives him the functionality, but not the essence. Like the sun shines on the earth. It's sunlight, and it's sunshine. But it's not the sun itself. It's only the shine. It makes the earth lit up. Functionally, we have day, but only functionally. As soon as the sun leaves, darkness is back in place. Not only that, but even while the sun was here, the essential darkness of the world that we discussed many times is still, the world is essential. It doesn't change the essential state of the world. It's still dark, but this darkness, the light of the sun illuminates that darkness. So you could see while it is dark, so to speak. But it doesn't change the fundamental thing. Why? Because it's only ha'ora that comes to it. So it gives it a functionality of light. So this is what we're saying, that Malchus is only called the Mus Kved Havaya, because it's only ha'ora of Kved Havaya, of Havaya. So this is Havaya, this is Shem Havaya. This is the real thing. The Etzem of Shem Havaya, of Alakus. Okay? Okay, so now we have the parenthesis, which is just a reference. V'zehu she'omru, and this is what the Chachamim said. Kol ha'neviim nisnabu b'koi. All the Nevi'im, except for Moshe Rabbeinu, nisnabu b'koi, their nevuah was always expressed in the form of koi. Koi means thusly. Thusly means like this. Hainu, which means to say, Shelero etzem hadibur ho'elye. They did not see the dibur elin itself. We will discuss it as the Rebbe presents it in a moment. The dibur elin itself they didn't see. K'moy b'matan Torah, as what happened by Matan Torah, for instance. V'ksiv, where it says, Ponim b'ponim dibur avayim ochem. Hashem spoke with you, ponim upon him, face to face, like two people speaking to each other. When two people speaking to each other, please understand, it's not just I hear your voice, I hear your words, I see you speaking to me. It's a completely different experience. Not like I hear the sound. I see you speaking to me. It's a real conversation. It's a real presence. That's it. In the Devaration is Gala Lohem Mahuz Hadibur Ho'elyin. At the time of Matan Torah, the Mahus, which means the very presence of the Dibur Elyon, as Hashem spoke, that's what they saw. Not two separate near. Hashem spoke and they heard, reverberations or sounds or something that they can pick up. Hashem spoke to them and they heard the speech itself. That's meant Mahus, the very essence of it. Masha and Cain. Let's focus in a little bit more into this. Mahus Adibur Elim, because these are extremely significant principles. Like we said many times, that when you see a person frontally, you know this is him, this is Zeh. When you see him from the side, from the back, you know this is like him, but you don't see this is him. The same thing when you speak to a person. If you speak face to face, you know what he is saying, not merely because you hear his words, but he is talking to you. You see that it is his words that you're hearing. When you hear him through the wall or you hear him from the back, you know that he is speaking, but you don't see that he is speaking. It's not the same thing at all. It's not the same experience. The Alter Rebbe says an interesting thing in Tanya. Phenomenal thing. He says, a Rebbe is teaching, a Rav is teaching Talmidim. And Talmidim is sitting in front of him, and he is teaching them and explaining it specifically, directly to them. And they are listening, and they understand what he is explaining to them. Let's say if they heard the very same words, exactly the same words, but the Rav was not teaching anybody. He was talking to himself and explaining, as he is learning, he was explaining to himself the thing. They heard exactly the same words. They would not understand it the same way. You understand? This is a phenomenal thing. Because when it comes person to person, the real dibur, the force of the dibur itself comes through, not what you hear as a secondary, as an echo. The sound that's carried through the air. You actually have the words as they come out. That's called ponim b'ponim, dibur havaya. So the Nevi'im, by Matan Torah, we saw ponim b'ponim dibur havaya shenizgal lahem muz adibur ha'elyon. This is why by Matan Torah, all Eden, this is the big significance of Matan Torah, that all Eden was standing by Matan Torah, and they all heard directly the Dvar Havaya. And this Dvar Havaya, the very words themselves imbued themselves into the Jewish souls. It's not that they heard it with their intelligence. They know what Hashem said. They have the Dvar Havaya in their own seichel, in their own mind, in their own soul. This is why the Matan Torah, Maimed Hasinai, has a tremendous significance. It actually imbued itself into the Jewish neshamas. Ma she'en kein b'Nevi'im, but this was different by Nevi'im. Nevi'im also Hashem spoke to them, but there Hoyorag bechinas demuz hadibur. There it was only the muz hadibur, the reflection, the similarity of dibur. Now, as Hashem spoke, and they heard something akin, similar to what Hashem is saying, but not the dibur itself. And that the posuk actually says clearly, Biyad hanviim adame. In the hands of Nevi'im adame, I will present myself, my likeness, but not me. It's not the same thing. The Bechinas Dmus Levad, which is only Dmus. V'hainu, which actually is telling us, why was it by the Nevuah of the Nevi'im called Dmus, Adama? Lefi shenevuosam hoiso mebchinas malchus, because their nevuah was from the bechina that's called malchus, like we discussed before, malchus. Shehi bechinas mare udmus canal. Malchus doesn't have the essence like zo, but it only has the mare udmus, the appearance and the similarity.
Is this what means that why the Nevi'im, they saw like visions that were like mashalim or different things as opposed to getting the straight
direct statement? There were many different madregas in the Nevi'im. Among all the Nevi'im, there were many madregas. Moshe Rabbeinu is in a class by himself. Amongst all the Nevi'im, there were also many different madregas. Some were just like they had a moshel, and then in this moshel they were given the ability to interpret the moshel properly. It wasn't direct speech. V'gam, then too, shoyresh nevuosom ba'atzilus, the source of their nevuah, as it is coming from Atzilus, Lamailo mebchinas Malchus, where it is rooted above Malchus. Malchus is a means of transmission, essentially. Malchus, we said, is like dibur, speech. But you speak what you have from your seichel and from your midas. You don't speak from speech. So this means that it's rooted above Malchus. So shoyresh nevuosam ba'atzilus higher than Malchus, l'mayla mebchinas Malchus, hu benetzach v'hoi dezo. It is on the level of netzach v'hoi. Zo means, I said, the six midas, chesed, gvura, tiferes, and then there is netzach v'hoi deside. Netzach and hoi, these are the second half of midas. What is the difference? Netzach v'hoi dezo, shehein, which are klei hashpor levad. Netzach v'hoi, within zo, within midas, there is the netzach v'hoi of midas. What's the difference between chesed, gvura, and netzach and hoi?
You spoke about it.
You spoke about it, sure. No?
We said it's only functionality of it. It's
Right.
not,
It's only a means to express it, not the essence itself. So even within Zohar, the root of their nevuah is from that which is meant for the outside, not internal to itself. Chesed and gvura is something which is on the inside. Netzach is how this thing is prepared to go out, which is the chitzonius already. That's right, very good. Shehein klei hashpor levad. That's what I'm saying. These are the kelim of hashpor. These are the means, the kelim. Kelim refers to every sphera has oil v'kelim. These are the kelim for hashpor, to give it outside, not what it is internal to itself. Obchinas, we'll finish this, Obchinas ha-moichin dezo, and what the moichin element of zo. This is what we discussed the other day, that the moichin is the most important aspect. What is moichin? Moichin is, like we said before, what is different between a human being, lahavdil, and an animal? That a human being has this sense, can relate to the reality. The moichin of Zoh, this is the reality of Zoh. This is the reality. This is, and Zoh has an element of reality because it receives its moichin from Avor, as we discussed the other day. So, bechinas moichin of Zoh, which is the sense of the reality itself, kvar ne'elam bohem, was already concealed in the midas as they come down to Malchus. It was concealed. Where was it concealed? Bebeis ha'alomis, in two levels of concealment. Aleph, the first one, bechagas. The moichin first comes. Moichin is avo, is chochma and bina. And when chochma and bina comes down to chagas, which is chesed, gvura, tiferes, it already conceals the moichin. It becomes midas. It's not the same like in the moichin. And then habois, and the second ha'alome is benetzich v'hayit. When it comes down further to be concealed, so that it becomes only the chitzoni is only to be mashpia to the outside. So by the time it comes into Malchus, and by the time the Nevi'im get this from Malchus, the whole inyan of the moichin of the Zoh is already lost completely, concealed. That's why they did not have this aspaklari hamiyira, this zeh, this clarity of the Dibur Elin itself. That's why the Nevuah is called Koi, a Dmus. It's only a reflection, not the real thing.
Can you explain more of this idea that the moichin becomes concealed by Chagas and
Right. Yes, I could and I would and I would like, but I don't know if I have the time. Just very briefly, like we spoke before, so that there is the union of reality. Why does a human being see things from a reality perspective and will have that an animal doesn't? Because a human being has the moichin element. Moichin, now you said moichin means he can see things objectively, he can see the reality. This ability to see the reality really is not just because he has seichel, but because he has a kind of a neshama that relates to that truth. And this is why he can actually see it that way. But l'peil mamash, when it comes down through the process of moichin, the reality itself. Now, the concept of concealment very simply, very briefly, if we need be, we'll discuss it more next time, is as follows. You recall we used all kinds of different analogies, like a table. Remember that? We are now analyzing a table. We said a table is a board on 4 legs. But that's not. That's only how it's represented. A table is a human concept. A human being fits, it's a human concept that a human being requires a table. It's part of the self-respect of a human being that he sits in front of a table. This sense that is a part of the sense of the self-respect of a human being that he sits on a table, this would never build a table. They can't tell a carpenter, build me something that would represent my self-respect. There is nothing there. The concept itself has to gel, so to speak, be concealed, be tzamtzem, until you translate it on a practical level. At that point, all you see is a board on 4 legs. It takes an intelligent human being to say, oh, you know what this represents? It represents a human quality. And if you lack this intelligence, what are you going to say? It doesn't represent anything. It represents only convenience. A human being saw that this is convenience, so he built it out. It's nothing to do with the human nefesh, the human neshama. That's what they say in the Chitzonistic world. There's nothing to it. Just a convenience. Only what Hashem you blessed to know. No, this is part of the human soul that expresses itself in human intelligence. There's no, this is a human union. You understand what I'm saying? But practically speaking, looking at the table, it's completely concealed. That's what it's concealed.
And the same by chesed, for example, by chesed. Also.
That's right. By the time it comes into chesed, the intelligence, the pure chokhmah is already concealed. Because that's already how it translates in practice, in kindness. In chokhmah, you say, oh, all Eden are one thing. That's not what happens in chesed. In chesed it happens, okay, what am I going to do for you? It's a completely different concept. You understand? Okay? Yes, Absham.
More of a general question, but when counting the surahs, so
What?
When counting the surahs, basically there are three groups of three.
No. It's like counting what?
The spheres.
No, I'm not going there. What did we learn? You have any questions on what we learned?
We're speaking of Zohar and
No,
Malchus.
do you have any questions on what we learned? I know what we were speaking of. I know you know what we were speaking of. I want to know if you know what we said.
I know what we said.
Okay, very good. So, Mitzvah Hashem, next time we're going to continue this same thing, and we're going to stay on target. Okay? That's very important that we stay focused.
What was the reason
And
why?
we'll discuss anything you want that will help you understand what we are saying. But not off topic. Okay?
What was the Neshama reason for a table?
Say again?
The Neshama reason for a table?
The Shoma reason for the table is that a human being, a neshama, demands that he be a notch above the physical world. If he has to hold the cup, he doesn't have to hold it in his hand. He can put it down. He needs a sefer, he can put it down. And he can be involved in the ruchnius of it. The same as we explained the whole phenomenon that human being stands up erect on 2 feet. This is not natural from a physical perspective. But that's what a human being is. As soon as a child is a little bit developed, he wants to stand up. He stands up and he falls down. He stands up again and falls down. Because that's what the Neshama demanded. He should stand up. Okay, this is it.